in McGregor with Messer.
All right, if there's no questions, is there a motion to approve the chamber report for recording purposes?
Motion to approve. Second.
We have a motion, second. Any other discussion? Other discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass.
All right, we can go back up to item F, budget amendments. F1's regarding the FY22 budget. Francis?
FY22 budget amendments, starting with F1A.
Is there a motion to approve F1D through F1I?
So moved. Second.
We have a motion, second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass.
Under item G, bids, RFPs, RFQs. G1 is authorization of recommendations. G1A regarding bid 22-004, aggregate surface treatment for delivery and pickup.
All right, what's your pleasure on items G1A?
Motion to approve the purchasing director's recommendations on the bids.
Second. We have a motion, second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. All right.
All right, item G1B regarding bid 22-005, asphalt emulsions for delivery and pickup.
Not what's your pleasure, court?
Move to approve the recommendation of the purchasing director.
All right. Is there a second?
Second.
All right. We have a motion, second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass. I'd like to go to item L1. We have Shane Turner and Fiona Bond here. This is regarding the U.S. Department of Treasury Coronavirus Local Fiscal Recovery Fund American Rescue Plan Act discussion or action regarding the eligible expenses and our funding guidelines, reporting requirements, and funding request. Okay.
So I'm Fiona Bond, Executive Director of Creative Waco, and of course this is Shane Turner, owner and operator of the Hippodrome.
All right, so we will recess until 1 o'clock tomorrow. So it's 11. All right, good morning. Let's call court to order. Today is Tuesday, March 1st, 2022. It's 9 a.m. Proof of posting, please.
The agenda was posted on Friday, February 25th, 2022 at 3:10 p.m.
Thank you. And if anyone has a public comment, they can come forward now from the audience. Yes, sir.
My name is Shannon Caraway. I'm Vice President for Business Development for a company called Solar Prime. Currently, we're trying to develop another 300 megawatt solar farm and 300 megawatt battery energy storage project here in McLennan County. And it's out north of Trading House Creek Reservoir, that area there. We're preparing to submit a proposal to this body soon for a county tax abatement for the project, and just wanted to stop by ahead of time, introduce ourselves, and tell you what we're doing.
Going to D on the proclamations resolutions. We have
Recording in progress.
To 4:45 p.m.
Okay, this time, let's pause briefly for a moment of silence, and then we'll have a pledge to the American flag and the Texas flag led by Veteran Service Officer Steve Hernandez.
Please join the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Now Texas pledge. Honor the sacred flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one indivisible.
Thanks, Steve. Yes. Okay. Now, if there's any members of the public that want to speak to the board, I don't believe anyone called you, is that correct? All right, seeing none, we'll go to. We do not have the proclamation of the resolution this morning, so we're about to move to the consent agenda. Recommended pulls are E3A pertaining to an HR matter called IT director. E3B is a matter called juvenile. E3C HR matter of maintenance buildings. Is there any other recommended pulls? If not, is there a motion to approve the consent agenda with those pulls that we mentioned now?
Second.
Have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Thank you. All right, this time I'd like to go to item CM5 on the public. To procurement. David, I can't hear this morning. Morning, Mr. Quinn.
Good morning, Judge. Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Commissioners. My name is David Quinn. I'm the Program Manager at Public Power Pool. Not seeking any action today, just wanted to give you an update on the outcome of our recent procurement for a new contract beginning in 2023. The first meter read of 2023 and will run through 2025. It's a 3-year contract that we signed on behalf of members with NP2 Energy, doing business as Shell Energy Solutions. They're a reputable company that we have worked with them in the past, and we've had side contracts with NP2 in the past, and they have given us excellent service. So we expect a seamless transition as we transition out of the current contract with Cavallo in January and into NP2. There should be no disruption at all. We'll be watching to make sure that your bills are sent on time and accurately as always. Normally the P3 procurement process is about a 5 to 6 month length process. This one took us 2.5 years. We were very close to procuring a record low rate back in February of 2020. And then, of course, the winter storm hit. And after that, we had subsequent a sequence of events that worked against us, including imbalances between demand and supply, inflation, a lot of skittishness and nervousness in the industry after that weather event that disrupted ERCOT and put some retailers out of business. We had rapid inflation, and most recently, of course, the fog of war has really clouded the pricing mechanisms, the availability of natural gas and exports and imports and so on. So the board told us to suspend our first attempt at procuring, and then as we approached the end of the current contract, we needed to get back into the market expeditiously. We sent out revised procurement proposals on August 2nd, And as always, under our bylaws, we gave members the 30-day opt-out review period to decide if the fuel wanted to stay with us for this procurement. In those proposals, we identified a ceiling rate which we could not bust at 7.65 cents from McLennan County. We were targeting 5.73 cents. The reason why we had a ceiling at such a high rate was just to cushion us in such a volatile market. Given the daily price fluctuations that we were seeing, we wanted to make sure that we had enough wiggle room in the event the markets turned against us in the remaining 6 months of this year. I came back to you and I presented in mid-August because we had sent out updated preliminary budget reports to assist members in being able to budget for FY23. And at that time, before we were even looking to contract, we had identified a rate of about 5.94 cents that we used to give you budget projections so you could see how much you should be allocating for energy expenditures in FY23. I'm pleased to report that when we finally transacted on October 26th, we negotiated a rate for the county of 5.7 cents. That is a fixed rate for 3 years. Essentially, what we did was by combining all 3 years together, we are cushioning the blow of significantly higher prices in 2023 by mixing those, blending them with 2024 and 2025 to get you to that rate of 5.7 cents. And as I mentioned, that is a fixed rate that will give you budget stability over the 3-year term. Any increase in your total expenditures will be because of adds and deletes that you bring in and out of contracts during the next 3 years, which we will handle for you. It does mean, though, that your electricity costs are going up. Sorry to bring you the bad news, but it represents a 62% increase in the commodity costs versus the current 3-year contract. And in terms of total costs, about a 39% increase in total costs to the county. There's actually a forward budget report that reflects the contracted rate on the right-hand side of that package. It gives you the actual dollar numbers in terms of what we're anticipating. So in FY23, we anticipate you're going to be spending $958,000 total costs. That will bump up to $1,032,375 in FY24. So we sent out that full budget report. First action we took after procuring, we wanted to make sure you had those numbers as quickly as possible. We also sent out a transaction report, which is behind the full budget report in your packets. It basically describes, our methodology, how we run what we think is the most competitive procurement in the state of Texas for electricity, simply because we're inviting every retail electric provider to bid on the contract, and how we leverage the size of the group to win additional contract benefits and protections for you. So, as an example, your consumption can go up and down. It can go down to zero, and there will be no recourse. There will be no penalty for you. We have provisions in there to allow for unlimited adds and deletes if you're adding and deleting accounts over the next 3 years. There'll be no cost for doing that. If it's a large load addition, then our procedure has always been that we should competitively bid anything over 100 kW to make sure you get the best price available in the marketplace. In terms of the contract term length, we started this process and we had initially been looking for contract terms as long as 7 to 10 years. Given the pricing that was available back in 2020. Well, those prices went away. 3 years was identified as being the optimum term length for all members, simply because going out longer than 3 years, there was no material gain, no additional benefits or no cost savings to going out 5 years, 7 years, or 10 years. What we would anticipate doing is possibly starting a new procurement, going back out into the market, maybe as early as next year, so that we can secure and lock in a future rate, which will be significantly lower than the one we have just procured as soon as that becomes available. So at some time in the future, I'm sure I'll be coming back to request another presentation, letting me know how markets are changing and whether we have an opportunity to purchase for future contracts as early as next year. I think I should maybe stop there and ask if anybody has any questions.
Okay, any questions?
Ken and I were in on most all the calls. P3 did an excellent job and really trying to market. So to have all these retailers bidding competitively on it, I think is a great advantage to the county.
Whenever you show the savings calculation in that model, what do you go to that, like if the county were to choose this the spot market on a monthly basis, it compares that, what that cost would be relative to what we're doing, what you're doing.
Correct, yes, Judge. That savings graph here that shows the $1.6 million interest savings.
Yeah.
That is comparing the fixed rate in each of the P3 contracts since you're drawing back at the beginning of the program in 2002. Comparing the price that you paid with P3 compared to what the price would have been on the spot market, settling every single day since you joined.
Right.
So it's really one of the many different ways of calculating savings. We think that's part of the most accurate. Just to give you an idea of what pricing would have been if you'd been out there by yourself on each individual basis in 2002.
Then, of course, it's hard, we really can't talk about these things without putting in the factor of political waves, pushing one way or the other. And so, under the current administration's energy policy, either the policy has to change or the administration has to change. But that's making a difference out, let's say, and that's probably gonna be like in 3 years before it could actually, so, or we start producing, and being more independent. So I guess this still allows, because we're short in that term, if that does happen, then we'll be poised to take on any advantage. Well, it's gonna be, we're gonna take on whatever it is, higher or lower, in a couple of years anyway.
Yeah. I would expect, Judge, that, we will see some significant changes in the marketplace in the next 3 years. So one of the big issues that we are tracking on a monthly basis is to build out the battery backup. But in addition to that, weatherization, more renewables coming online, but also increasing competitiveness from natural gas. So, we monitor all of these factors on a monthly basis and report to members on the technical committee calls. But yes, I would imagine that the marketplace in 3 years' time is going to look a little different than what it does right now. We'll be in a good position here to be flexible. We want to be nimble. We want to be flexible. We want to be responsive to those changes. We don't want to get stuck in a rut. We don't want to go too far and not be able to be able to respond to things that could work in our favor.
Right.
Okay. We have plenty of electricity in Texas, I believe. We just don't necessarily have the grid. Is something I found out during this process. There's times when the producers have to back off because there's not enough transmission line. What was I asked that question? The analyst brought that up. What's that called?
The nodal congestion.
Yeah, nodal congestion.
Yeah.
It makes sense with the growth that we've seen.
Yeah.
How do you build electrical infrastructure as quick as we're growing? That's
very true. And we're also beginning to see, Commissioner, people being able to produce their own energy, which, for a long time you have to be registered as a retail electric provider to be putting that energy back on the grid. Well, that's changing now, and people are actually producing from their own solar arrays, not just being able to offset their own production, but being able to put that back onto the grid. So there are a lot of nuances in terms of the change of demand and supply.
Does P3 consult on that? Would y'all counties consult on them?
We don't do demand side in terms of, for example, solar arrays.
Right.
Yeah. We don't actually actively participate in that marketplace, but we do review demand side proposals that have been designed for counties and other members to make sure that the kind of touted savings are accurate. There's a lot of numbers that are thrown out there in terms of how much you could save. Yeah. We can run checks to see if those are realistic based on your work profile and your consumption, to give you an idea. If the county wanted to go green and purchase 100% renewable, then we could do that either through renewable energy credits, or we have a new provision in the new contract that allows us to swap out the energy that's already been purchased if the cost of green comes down to the price of cost of conventional. So if we're able to do a straight swap of conventional for green power, and an individual member says we want to go green, then we can do that. During this procurement, one member, Dallas County, actually instructed us to purchase 100% green, as long as it would not cost them more than 110% of the price of renewable, of conventional. So in other words, they were willing to pay a 10% premium to go green. That was their choice. That was their policy decision. And we designed a specific product for them to be able to do that within this contract. So we have lots of options available to us if any member is interested in going in that direction.
I was more thinking of like, along lines of our rural offices. Or road and bridge lines, things like that. They do like solar panels, might be worth taking a look at. Especially since some of our rural areas aren't able to be served by P3 because they're in co-op. And so just the thought.
Yeah, only what's the return on the investment?
Yeah, that's I mean, it's just.
I wouldn't do it because it's a green, and then won't do it because it's a
Dollar.
Cheap.
I'm saying, I feel the same.
Yeah, there'll be a front end investment on that.
We do have a member that contacted us a couple of days ago, West Texas, and they are considering switching out their fleets from gas powered vehicles to electric powered vehicles and putting in all the charging stations around the county, so that there would never be a problem with any of those vehicles losing power, so they would have enough charging stations. And they're running analysis to figure out what they're currently paying in terms of their gas expenditures for gassing up those vehicles compared to what they would pay if they were going to be building out that infrastructure within the county and charging those vehicles, ramping up their electricity consumption and ensure that electricity consumption will go up because of that. But that's something that they want to explore and take a look and see if that's a cost-effective way for them to manage that vehicle.
Okay, any other questions or comments? For the motion to approve or support for recording purposes.
So moved.
Second.
Motion made and second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, passed. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Judge. Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate your time. Thanks.
Okay, going to item M1, discussion or action on matters regarding COVID-19. Is Ryan on or Mr. Miller, do you have any updates on?
Yes, sir, Judge, I'm here. Commissioner, would you prefer, or would you like us to brief out?
Judge, we aren't getting any audio from the courtroom. It just dropped.
Can anyone hear me?
I can hear you, Ryan. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
Yeah, I think something happened in the courtroom.
Gotcha. It was happening coming this direction when we first got started.
Okay.
You can talk.
All right, Ryan, can you hear me?
Yes, sir, I can.
All right, good morning.
Morning, Judge. Commissioner, I can brief out or you can, Commissioner Miller, whatever you prefer. All right, does everybody have me? We'll work it out. Can everybody hear me now? All right, very good. Sorry about that, guys. So as of yesterday, the health district was reporting 16 new cases, six of which are currently hospitalized of McLennan County residents. So still kind of decent numbers, and the hospitals are not overwhelmed by COVID at this time.
Okay. All right, Commissioner Miller, do you have anything, COVID or?
That's pretty much the information. We did suffer one more loss, so we're at 904, but our community risk level is still low.
Okay.
We haven't had any new monkeypox cases since October 14th.
Yeah.
So that's great news too.
Right. Okay. Motion to approve Ryan's report on recording purposes.
So moved.
Second. Have a motion second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, pass. All right, my question would be, going forward, does this still need to be on the agenda? Or should we, if we set a criteria or numbers to get a certain amount and we discuss it again, or what's the thoughts of it?
I think the information that Ryan will get or I will get, I can make sure Reagan has it. I think it can go out as just an email to the court members. Our numbers are so low. I don't see where they want an agenda item.
Okay, thank you. Does anybody else have an opinion? Okay, so I guess it's if Ryan or Commissioner Miller, anyone else has information that want to share it with the commissioners, forward that to Reagan, and she will get that out to everyone. Okay. All right, let's go back to the consent agenda items that are pulled. Under E3A, we will be doing our second round interview tomorrow with one candidate. And so I would say that we defer that till tomorrow, because we will actually recess today and go back into open session tomorrow to start off with under item 3B, HR matter for juvenile. So, Anna.
Good morning, everyone. Can everyone hear me?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. E3B, I have juvenile, the Juvenile Services Department requesting authorization to rehire a retiree by the name of Magella Stance into a full-time detention shift supervisor position. This position was posted to the public and accepted applications per policy. And this hire does meet the minimum 90-day break-in service requirement prior to rehire, and they have completed the required affidavits affirming that there was no pre-arrangement for hire upon retirement. Again, that's the position of detention shift supervisor that they want to hire Magella, the retiree, into, and then the hire does follow the policy guidelines for a retiree.
So it requires court approval, even though it meets the guidelines?
Yes, the affidavits need to be recorded under court minutes.
All right, any questions anyone have? All right, is there a motion to approve this action?
So moved.
Second. Have a motion second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, pass. All right, going to E3C, maintenance of buildings.
This is very similar request. This is maintenance of buildings, requesting authorization to rehire a retiree, Willard Davis, into a part-time maintenance position. And again, it's a retiree that has met the minimum 90-day break in service. They did apply for a position that was posted for the minimum 5 days. And so again, this hire would meet all the requirements to rehire a retiree. The requirements to rehire a retiree are in place in order to comply with our PCDRS plan. So that's the purpose behind affirming through an affidavit that there was no pre-arranged agreement to hire upon retirement. And that's the purpose there. But similar request, again, this is for maintenance of buildings to rehire a retiree into a part-time position.
Okay. All right. Any questions anyone have? All right, what's the pleasure, George?
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion, second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass.
Thank you.
All right, thank you. I think that concludes everything under items around the consent agenda. So I can go to item F, which is budget amendments, transfer changes. F1 regarding the FY22 budget. Francis? Morning.
Yes, sir. Good morning. So yes, for FY22, we still have a few budget amendments we need to clean things up. So starting with F1A, and this is in the general fund. This is in our contract with programs department, and this is an increase to our line item for the emergency management department. This is needed. If you remember, earlier in the year, the state stopped funding a portion of that department. We did our best to estimate what we would need for the remainder of the year due to that change, but we did need this additional amount for that final month of the year. F1B, this is General Fund Health Services Department, needing an additional $5,000 in pauper burials, also to finish out the month of September. F1C1, this is Gel Medical. Highway 6 Gel Medical, they are needing to increase after the final payroll, part-time pay, overtime pay, and then also the line item for medical services, which are outsourced medical services provided to inmates. They did have excess funding in the full-time employees line, so we're requesting to move from that line. And then F1C2, this is in the Highway 6 Jail Department, and they are needing to increase other services and charges. For some advertising, and they are moving from another line within that department's budget. So that completes F1, the items under F1.
All right, thank you. All right, any questions for Francis? If not, is there a motion to approve all the items under F1?
So moved. Second.
Have a motion, second, any discussion? Discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. All right, and F2 regarding the FY23 budget. Francis?
And so then under F2, F2A, 1 and 2, we have nothing today. And so those can be points for today. And so then going to budget amendments for fiscal year 23, starting with F2B, 1. The first three are all out of regarding capital outlay. So F2B1 is general fund capital outlay. The request is to increase that line for an audio visual upgrade to the 74th District Court. This was not in the original adopted budget. So you'll see the total there with the attached backup with all of the pieces. Any questions regarding the specifics on that project? I know IT can speak on it.
I guess my question was, why wasn't it in the budget? Any idea?
It just wasn't requested, and we didn't know it was going to be needed at that time.
Yeah, the changes that Judge Foley requested came in after he moved up the court.
Which was after the budget process?
Yes.
Any other questions?
So then I'll move on to F2B2. This is capital outlay in the general fund. This is specific to Constable 1. So this is the amount that is needed for the county's portion for year one of the body camera purchase that you approved. We still do not have final grant documentation, so the purchase will not be made until that is all that paperwork is taken care of, but this does increase the capital outlay item for the county's portion. F2, B3, we need to pull this one with no action. Right. Needed. F2C, 1 and 2, these are both permanent improvement related items and specifically being taken out of the proceeds from the 2021 bond issue. So F2C1, this is regarding the demolition at 415 Columbus. So you approved that proposal from Walker Partners on the last agenda. And then F2C2 is regarding the property at 1211 Washington, and this is for the structured cabling. This was also approved on the last agenda. And then F2D, this is general fund, and this is for the GEL Medical and as well as Jack Harwell Medical. They are just needing to move within their professional development lines between departments. So moving from each of those facilities departments into the medical. And then F2E, this is a special revenue fund. This is Fund 166. It's our Veterans Treatment Court Program Fund. So that fund is collecting fees that are gathered from participants in that program. There was no budget requested or set at the beginning of the year, but they are going to want to go ahead and request an increase to supplies and professional services. And so that just comes from the contingencies in that special revenue fund. And then F2F is general fund, road and bridge 2, just requesting to move from the contingencies in that department into other services and charges. And that completes the 2023 budget amendments.
Okay. So F2G, you'll address that next time. All right, going back, there's a motion to approve under F2B, F2B1, also F2B3, F2BC, and under C, both 1, 2, and F2D, F2E, and F2F.
Move to approve.
So hold, F2B3 should have been full and no action.
Correct.
And then F2B2, is that, are we moving forward with that?
So we are waiting on grant documentation. If you want to go ahead and approve that today, it'll be ready to go. If for some reason there was no grant funding for whatever reason, we would of course not allow the expenditure.
We maybe need to defer that.
You've approved the purchase, so we could go ahead and defer it. We can always come back with this after the fact, but it's just, it wouldn't slow things down.
What's called one there? No.
Which one now we talking about?
F2B2.
On the camera.
Yes.
We're waiting for the grant.
Or final grant documentation, yes.
Normally, how is it handled? Like, I mean, is it? We don't pay for anything until we get the grant.
No, so when you approve that purchase, the body camera project or purchase over the next few years, you approved it. We took it as the intent is that first year would be partially funded by the grant.
Yeah.
So if for some reason.
Actually approved it instead of
Correct.
the grant coming, so.
Yes.
We can do what you want.
So we-
I would prefer to defer it. That's just one.
So would you make a separate motion?
Yeah, my motion to defer F2B2.
Second. All right, have a motion second, any discussion, no discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, passed. So with the exception of that one, the ones I previously mentioned, is there, what's the pleasure for them?
F2B3 is full with no action.
Yeah.
Correct.
So I'll make a motion that we approve F2B1, F2C1, F2C2, F2D, E, F.
Second.
Motion second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed. All right, under F2, D, Justin.
Yes, sir. So F2G is the McLennan Community Investment Fund authorization of funding request. This is the request from the investment fund for $50,000. Those funds are included in the budget under the Economic Development Department. And this is to be used for their community development loan program. And then this funding request also has an addendum at the back that becomes our agreement with them.
Okay, thank you. All right, any questions? What's the pleasure of the court on F2G?
Move to approve. Second.
Have a motion second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed. Right under items, G and bid, RFPs, RFQ, G1 authorization recommendation for RFQ 22-013, construction manager list services for a major renovation project in Huntington.
So just as a reminder for the selection of the CMAR, we are doing a two-step process. The first is the request for qualifications. Those are back and have been scored by our team. And the summary of those scores is included in your packet. The next step is to do a request for proposals. Our group agrees, and working with Denny at Brinkley Sargent, that all of the respondents are qualified to submit proposals. So purchasing is requesting the authorization to be allowed to release the request for proposals to the companies listed above, which would be John W. Irwin General Contractors, Masonic Construction Company, and Sodalco Construction Services. And just a very quick update, Brinkley Sargent has begun their meetings with departments and courts. Those are going well so far. Brinkley Sargent did mention that they had included an escalation factor in our preliminary budget, and work they're seeing elsewhere is already exceeding that amount. So just something for the court to be aware of as we kind of head off into this project.
Okay, so what this action would be would just to allow a person to release the request for proposal to the companies that have been qualified in school.
That's correct. And I know we are continuing to work on that RFP with Brinkley Sargent and with Mike and purchasing. So the hope would be to be able to request from y'all today to release that when it's ready.
Okay. All right. Any questions anyone have? If not, is there a motion to approve the release of the documents?
So moved.
Second.
Actually, to release of the proposal for the companies. Motion second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. Item H, and contract and local agreements. Under H1 authorization of letter agreement with Hendricks Consulting Engineers. So I call them PJ.
Good morning, everyone. So Trilogy did not respond to our last request for proposal. So we're putting this back before court with recommendation to approve going forward with Hendricks.
All right, any questions? All right, what's the pleasure of the court? Move to approve.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, pass. Thank you. Under item H2, authorization of master service agreement, business associate agreement, related statement of work with American Specialty Health Fitness Incorporated. So, Anna? Says here it needs to be pulled.
Pulled, no action.
All right, we'll pull that. And then under H3, authorization of business associate agreement with Axiom Enterprise. Justin?
Yes, sir. And Judge, this relates back to those body cameras. So I think the preference would be to defer this week.
All right, is there a motion to the front?
So moved. Second.
I have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, passed. Number 84, authorization master agreement with, Oracle America Incorporated. This is on the license agreement, DeQuinta.
Hi, good morning, everyone. Yes, this is a new document that Oracle has asked us to sign as a public entity. We already had approved for the renewal, and so in order for them to process our PO, they just need this signature on the page presented.
All right, any questions? And so Dustin and legal looked at this for any reason.
Yes, sir. It's been reviewed, and it's Oracle is such a big company that, you know, there are some things in it that we just have to accept. So.
All right. There a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second, I'll second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? No opposed? Pass. Thank you. Under H5, authorization of memorandum of understanding with the city of Waco and Clinton County and 911 emergency assistance district. Dustin and Zane.
And Zane can add in. I know he's worked with the city of Waco and with the 911 emergency assistant district to get them to share the cost of this updated ortho imagery data. And this is an MOU for it with the cost of by each entity estimated to be at $99,656.26. Zane, do you want to add anything?
I would just like to make it clear that the county's portion of that 99,000 figure is 1/3 of that. So it's our portion would be 33,218.75, and that we're getting such a good deal by using a state contract, the DIR. So we've been working with Ken Bass and purchasing to get that good state contracted price. So it's been the last time we received aerial photographs of the county was in 2020. If y'all approve this, we will get them updated in probably January to February 2023. It's recommended for approval.
Motion to approve. I have a motion. Is there a second? Second. Motion made second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass. All right, under H6, authorization of use agreement with TxDOT on the record building parking lot.
Yes, sir. This is what we discussed during the work session last time, where they would like to set up their drive sober, no regrets display in the records building parking lot on the evening of December the 2nd to coincide with the Waco Wonderland event at Heritage Square. And this is a use agreement that goes along with it. I will say in the past, when we've dealt with TxDOT, that it's likely they may request some changes. So if we could approve this contingent on, you know, any changes being approved by our legal, that would be good.
Okay, any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve H6?
Second.
And a motion second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Under H7, authorization of lease agreement with Pitney Bowes for the sheriff's department. David? Morning.
Yes, this is in regards to our new mail machine that was approved a couple of months ago, and we've been trying to get the correct equipment. The scale that came with the machine was not the scale that we requested, and this is just an update for the scale going from the 5-pound scale, which is not suitable for the jail property that we tend to have to mail off, to the 30-pound scale. So this is just kind of the amendment to add that larger capacity scale to the mail machine that was already approved.
Any questions for David? None, is there a motion to approve?
Motion to approve H7.
Second.
Have a motion second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Pass. Thank you. Under H8, authorization of service agreement with Motorola Solutions. This is the sheriff's office radios, all on Michael Graham and Dustin
Judge, I don't see Michael on. What this does, this brings some of our subscriber radio units back under warranty with Motorola, and so it's recommended for approval.
Any questions?
Motion to approve.
Second. All right, got a motion. Give a second. No other discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. Under H9, authorization lease agreement with the Department of Motor Vehicles. That's it.
Yes, sir. This is a lease agreement for an additional registration and title system workstation beyond what is currently allocated by the DMV. The cost is $359 a year.
Have any questions? If not, what's the pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
That motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Pass. Under H10, authorization of iPad agreement with Hard Texas Behavioral Health Network. Justin?
Yes, sir. So Heart of Texas Behavioral Health had received a grant through a Zero Suicide Initiative program. It is for iPads to be used in the provision of those services, and they would like to offer 2 of those iPads to the jail. We do have some responsibility with those. Should any loss or damage occur to those, it would be our responsibility. And we're also responsible for any data plan costs. David, did you have anything you'd like to add? Judge, I think this is recommended for approval.
That's what's the pleasure. Cool.
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion made second. Any other discussion?
How many, are we talking here?
Two.
It's just 2.
Okay.
Yes, that's correct.
Any other questions? If not, what's the pleasure? Cool. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. Under item I, capital improvements, repairs and maintenance, we have nothing to do. Under J, real estate, right of ways and easements, and J1, discussion or action regarding placement of signage on the county right of way of the old McGregor Road. Mr. Perry?
Yes, sir. City manager in Woodway, Sean Gray, requested some additional help with signage. This is trucks coming out of PCA are quite often taking a left down on McGregor Road and up in the neighborhoods. So all they're asking from us is to for us to find a safe location and make it very clear that only right turns are allowed coming out of there. And we've agreed to do such, so we'll work with the city of Woodway on its placement for that, and it truly is a problem.
Okay, and this keeps the trucks from turning the other way going through neighborhood.
Right, and tearing up, I actually live a block or 2 now, so I've actually seen this quite a bit lately.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'd make a motion to approve.
Second. We got a motion, second, any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. All right, on K, on grants and grant proposal, and K1 regarding the U.S. Department of Treasury, the coronavirus local fiscal recovery act, investment.
Yes, sir. So nothing specific under that item, but moving on to K1A. This is regarding the professional services agreement with Forvis, formerly BKD, authorization of amendment number 1, increasing the scope to include subrecipient monitoring. As we discussed last court session, we have approached Forvis about adding subrecipient monitoring to their scope of services. This is something that will end up being very detailed work, and something that, as we discussed, other counties we've seen them do something similar or add additional staff. So we thought this might be the best approach. So Mike, did you kind of want to step through this addendum?
Yes, essentially it makes them responsible for the required subrecipient monitoring. And this is very significant stuff in the regulations. Because they're subawarded, we have to keep up with their compliance with the Code of Federal Regulations, Title II, CFR 200 et al. And it's a bear to understand it, let alone implement it. So that was the purpose here, is they would develop a risk assessment and subrecipient monitoring tool, develop grants management policies and procedures for the county's ARPA funds, provide sub-recipient monitoring, provide ongoing technical assistance to sub-recipients, and assist with reconciliation and supporting documents if and making reports on the treasury portal. The only concern I have is the price. We have in here that they stop at 100,000 and come back and seek approval for additional. But they have estimated that it might take 250,000 or more. Oh, and that's from now till the complete end of auditing and all that. That's not just for a short period of time. It's through after 2026, December 31st, 2026. Actually, it goes into 2027 to cover audit stuff and things like that where we might need their help. But again, I went back to them after looking at the rates charged and asked about lowering the rates. And it's a GSA contract, which keeps us from having to go out for the procurement process for it. And apparently the GSA contract, you can't raise or lower the rates because it's meant to be uniform for anybody that uses it. But doing the work, have every faith in them to be able to do the work and to they've been very good with us. I think the auditor's office would agree. We have the loaning entities and all the arsenic entities, and that have to have we have to do the sub-recipient monitoring on. And with these arsenic entities, they're not, and this isn't meant as a slight, but they're not going to have the sophistication of staff on board to be able to do a lot of this stuff. And
Mike,
yeah.
so you just brought up the only concern I had in this. My concern is until we know the process, and maybe you do, but what I don't want to do is pay somebody that kind of money for them to go, yeah, we'll handle it, and then they send everything to the auditor to be done through her office anyway.
No, that's why it says provide ongoing technical assistance to sub-recipients, because that's what we wanted to is, and we told them flat out in our conversation, it was Dustin and I and the auditor's office, that, hey, these are unsophisticated, not unsophisticated, these are people that haven't dealt with these types of things before. And even I or anybody in this room would struggle with trying to do this stuff. And if you don't do it all the time or haven't immersed yourself in it, it's going to be a problem. So, most of the people on these boards of these water systems and stuff, they're volunteers. They've got other jobs. And so it's hard enough for them to get their regular business done, let alone take on something like this without some help.
Francis?
Yes, and I would recommend going forward for this for these additional duties that they would perform. I know it's a large amount to digest, but you are looking at multiple years. Our experience with them already, we've been very impressed, and we're happy with the relationship we have with them. They already have a lot of prior knowledge because we've been working with them, of course, for the last year or so. They do, you can see, they have 8, 9 salary, individuals at their office that would be, assigned to us. So that's just a lot of work that there's no way that we can take it in our office. So I'm confident that they would be able to serve the purpose that we need.
So they stand in to cover the risk that we would normally have by them going through proper procedures, be sure they meet the standards. Therefore, if we were to receive a treasury audit, then they're like our accounting firm and standing in to help us.
Yeah, so we just resource that piece. Just one of these recipients, you could maybe need 2 new full-time people just to account, for the monitoring of one of those subrecipient awards. And so we would still be responsible, of course, for the work that was done, documentation we keep, and how those funds are being spent. But we're just outsourcing that monitoring piece.
But Mike, we would have recourse back to that Forbes if they let something slip between the cracks where it was their responsibility.
Yes, we would have recourse, and but I think the key, Francis brought it up, we would have to hire more people and we'd have to get them trained on that stuff. But if we didn't have Forbes, and like Commissioner Perry brought up, we want somebody to actually technically assist the subrecipients because, we know that there will be a problem with them being able to comply with all the rules.
That's something my point is, do they take legal liability?
They would be liable for any negligence or breach of contract.
Yeah. All right. So to go back, I know that when I first learned this, that they were talking about 200 and what was it, 250 or 230 total. And then now we're talking, so we're still talking about doing 100,000. And then
doing 100,000 to start and having them come back so we can review whether they're actually doing the services we want them to. If they're, if at that point they aren't living up to their the standards we expect, then we could go with somebody else. And I'm sure by that time there will be more people out there doing it. But it's right now, it's kind of hard. Even large accounting firms aren't set up to do this stuff. They're too diversified. They're not concentrated just on this one thing.
Then lastly, the only thing, Francis and Dustin, is any of these costs that we have come out of the ARPA side, but be sure that they're also, are legal and any of those other things that we can identify are covered in that. In other words, so it doesn't cost us a fortune to give away federal money.
Yeah, right. So is Mike keeping a separate timesheet?
So usually our legal bills are divided up into topic or, what the issue was at the time. So I don't think y'all have approved to charge any legal expenses to the ARPA grant as of yet. But we can pull what those hours and cost us up to the state.
Yeah, I would recommend that we do that before it gets away from us while we understand it and come back to the court and say, this is what we've spent.
One issue might be procurement there's no issue with Forbes on procurement because it's a GSA contract, but on charging my time, which quite frankly, I haven't I've been keeping it separated out. you know, it might be a procurement thing that we'd have to comply with. But
Well, look into it and come back to the court. Because if there are expenses that we can charge against the ARPA fund, then we absolutely want to do it. So we can get a report.
okay,
Anything else that we can think of?
I have a couple questions with Mike. Michael, on the additional or increasing the scope with these additional duties, like monitoring tool, or does that include making reports back to the court on progress of these different subrecipients that they're monitoring? Would there be a place in there so that, whether it be quarterly or something, that we get an update from them?
we can add that, and if you'll put it in the motion, we'll add that, because I don't see them having any problem with giving us like a quarterly report of what they've done and where the subrecipients are at in their compliance.
And I'm certainly not in a position of expertise to be able to tell them how to do something or not do something, but is it possible in those reports to where 0% means you haven't started, 100% means you completed it, that they could give us a running percentage of how, you know, develop their own scale, that they're 25% complete on the project, 35% complete, 0%, or anything like that, as for giving us an understanding how these people are moving forward with their projects?
That actually will come from the engineer in the monitoring contract.
They'll do that on our request, but yet, I agree with you, we're gonna pay somebody up to $250,000, we ought to be able to get a report that we can understand.
I'm assuming we're gonna encourage or require all these projects to be bonded as well.
Yeah.
And if they are, then they have to report to the bonding company on a percentage of completion basis. So that'll be-
I would qualify that probably some of the smaller projects may not have.
We probably should figure out.
All the ones that we have would be within the bonding statutes, I think, at least the arsenic statute, the arsenic abatement ones. And when the Water Development Board or HUD rural would require bonding anyway for their financing.
And Justin, did we ever request or get the Water Development Board's agreement with these organizations that we can look and see what their requirements are? Because I imagine they're pretty stringent.
Judge Tom had got us one from one of the entities and it wasn't exactly what we were looking for. So they're trying to round another one up.
Well, and we're pretty stringent on them already. I can tell you that the document we've prepared for the arsenic abatement ones, that they have to make draw requests. Those draw requests go through a review of the engineer. We have a lot of checks and balances. And then the engineer has to make a recommendation to you. And of course, we'll see them also. So there's a lot of eyes that will be on these projects, and the engineer will work with each project engineer to keep us updated on the progress, in addition to doing their own site visit once in a while to make sure that nobody's pulling their leg.
Okay. All right. Any other question or comments from the court or anyone else? So, what's the pleasure?
Make a motion to approve K1A.
And do you want to make that with changing it to require a quarterly report?
Yeah, at least quarterly reports, and I would say that if we wanted, when we really get down busy, that we get even monthly reports. But we'll start out with quarterly reports until construction starts.
Have they updated the document they have in the packet? This one says 250 to 268. On the range, it says we estimate our fee to range between 250,000 and 268,000.
But he was saying 100 up front, and then they came back and said it could go as high. Is that what I heard you say, Mike?
No, they said 250 to 268 from the start. I blocked them back down to 100 and them having to come back to court to request more, because I wanted a situation where if we weren't happy with them, we weren't tagged into continuing with that big of a load.
So
I'm sharing.
I'm gonna amend it right now.
Okay.
I'll amend my motion to say that we will up to 100,000 and then also request quarterly reports.
Okay, now understanding that the 100,000 doesn't give us everything that they're putting on the proposal, but we will, the first round of this, we would go up to 100,000 and then negotiate where we go from there for the rest of it.
Right, and Mike, I guess what you're saying is, let's see how it works before we go through every bit of money we have. Let's see how it works, and then we can renew the.
Yeah, and
Right,
continue.
'cause I was concerned about the price, and it's for a long period of time and a lot of work. But making them come back after after they reach 100,000, it gives us a chance to go back and see what they've done and whether we think it's worth it.
And it's not just, just monitoring the subrecipients, if you look through those 5 bullet points, they will. They'll put together policies and procedures, which is a federal mandate for this type of grant. We don't have the capability to do that. Like you said, doing the monitoring, providing technical assistance to those subrecipients, but then also just assisting us more with our reports. We'll continue to do the quarterly reporting.
So if we agree,
I'm gonna clearly restate my motion.
And Commissioner, before you do that, I just want to point out in the updated bookmark that went out yesterday, we got this agreement back on Friday, I believe. So it's in the updated bookmark, and in it states we will not exceed $100,000 without your prior written permission. However, we anticipate that 100,000 may not cover all fees related to monitoring throughout the period of ARPA funding. If our fees exceed 100,000, we will request an additional work order at that time.
okay.
Okay, so the motion will show the wording that was just shared by our County Administrator Dustin Chapman with regards to Corvus. The agreements are up to 100,000, renegotiated at that point, and a quarterly report.
And reports. Yeah, I want us to be able to, if we need, and the court wants it, to we'll get a report more often than quarterly, but.
Or as requested.
Or as requested.
And can you give me some wiggle room to do a couple other things that I can see here? One is on the management policies and procedures, reviewed, approved, and implemented by management. That would be us. I want to change it to by management with the assistance of Forbes.
Can we defer this till it's?
No, we don't have to.
All right, we take my battleship twice now, so.
Yeah, we can just hold it. Let the modifications come, and then tomorrow we'll go back into court. And we'll bring this up, Dustin, act on it, in its complete form.
Then I rescind my
Okay.
motion.
Sounds good.
That sounds good. We can get it done today.
Okay, so, we're not deferring, we're holding it. We just hold it later in the agenda. We read them all. All right, thank you. All right. I'd like to take a 5-minute break. Okay, it is 10:15. Let's call court back in second. Going to, I believe, item under K1B regarding the professional service agreement with, PKD.
Yes, sir. We had deferred.
Go ahead.
Sorry, Judge. This was deferred last court session as we were waiting on some additional information. This invoice totals $3,692.56, and it has been reviewed and recommended for approval.
All right, any questions? Not what's pleasure, board.
Motion to approve the invoice.
Have a motion second, any discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed. Under K1C, discussion or action on revised format for the ARPA arsenic abatement subsequent agreement, subrecipient agreement. Dustin?
Yes, sir. So we've approved this and had to revise it a couple times as we keep learning additional information. And Mike, did you want to kind of step into what this change was and why it's required?
Well, there's actually two changes. Only one I was able to get in your packet, but it would, well, one thing we learned, well, in the way that the agreement read before is that you couldn't make any draw requests until you got your additional funding from the Water Development Board or HUD. But what we found out was that some of these small entities don't even have the money to get the engineering stuff together and the other stuff together to submit a financing proposal to these, to Texas Water Development Board or HUD Rural. I mean, you have to actually submit kind of what your plan is and some other stuff that the engineer has to do, and but they just don't have the money to do it. So it's the chicken or the egg kind of thing. So the first change would be in 4 that started out with, except for engineering fees and other costs necessary to obtain the additional financing, no draws will be made on the funds allocated until the additional financing is obtained. The second change, we require an Exhibit C, and again, now understanding that none of these, probably the majority of these, don't even have a plan yet of abatement because they haven't been able to afford the engineering for it. Pride that Exhibit C may be added after the signing of this agreement if not currently available, which Exhibit C is engineer summary of the project and the solution to the arsenic problem selected, and the estimated cost of the project. So those are the two things, just loosening it up a little bit, because like I say, I think in drafting, went in understanding these outfits were already in the process of, engineering, finding out that the reality is that those costs were prohibitive, and they need to be able to draw on this money to be able to do the things they need to do to get the additional financing.
So Mike, how do you see we're not the sole funder.
Right.
We're a small part actually. So how do you see the funding from Water Development Board and ours? Where are we the first in, or I don't understand why they wouldn't have access to Water Development Board funding they're gonna have to provide the same information to all entities that put money.
Well, they can't create they can't create the engineering plans and stuff that they need to submit to the Water Development Board to get the funding.
I thought that was part of our
Yeah, so.
criteria for even considering.
Yeah, so if we put the money in and they can't get then we're out the money and we didn't solve the problem.
Exactly.
Well, but if we don't if we don't allow them to use any of this money for the initial engineering, we'll never be able to solve the problem because they won't be able to get the additional funding. And
But that's a lot, yeah, but that's money we can't get back if they don't complete the project.
Which the treasury, all of a sudden, we gotta pay the treasury back.
We
Well-
can say they've got to reimburse us, but if they've spent it, if they pay for an engineer, it's gone.
Well, it's just one of those things, if you really want to solve the arsenic problem, it's not gonna get solved without allowing them some initial access for engineering.
Do we know how many of them have to have this funding up front? Do we have any idea? Does LAM know how many of them have to have the?
We can check on that. I know that the
LTG is the one that requested this specifically.
LTG is under threat. They're already under threat of a $30,000 a day fine from the EPA, and EPA has filed a complaint. This action would probably back the EPA off of them some, but they don't have the money to do the upfront engineering, and it's not.
Why haven't they consulted? They had some sort of plan.
Yeah.
To build pipe, to put it in a pipeline, right?
Well, I think the plan, I think, yeah, they have a plan, but it hadn't been engineered. Yeah. The entity that's not at the table, the entity that's not at the table in this discussion is Water Development Board. And we need to have a representative to help us with Water Development Board to understand how we can make sure everybody understands what everybody's responsibility is.
Have we already granted them?
We allocated $4.4 million.
We have
to the arsenic. So that means
so those
in the paper.
Those four, there's like four of them or something.
No, there's more than
there's
that.
more than that.
Yeah, there's a bunch of them, but there's a group of them that come under FHLM. So that's a group that went together.
Well, I was saying, thinking it through, and I know what they're talking about is because when cities I've represented have done Water Development Board funding before, they want a full set of plans that don't necessarily have to be the final plans, but they're pretty much a full set of plans to review the likely efficacy of the project and before they do the loan. And that's a tough thing. And I think that if the entity needs these funds to get the additional funds, that would be a effective use of the money. And they won't necessarily use all of it either. I mean, it's just to do the initial planning.
The email we received.
That's putting us in the position of a guarantor. We're a guarantor of those funds that we're going to disperse. That if that project doesn't come to fruition, we're going to pay back the federal government.
Well,
that's a concern.
At some point.
You have to take, if you're going to fix this problem, you may have to take a little bit of a risk, but I don't think any of them are going to get turned down because this is a EPA mandate, and the Water Development Board has made it a priority to fund solutions to this arsenic problem.
But we hadn't talked to anybody at Water Development Board. And I think what we need to do is just pause for a minute and find out who we need to talk to at Water Development Board. It could be their attorney. They probably got on-staff attorneys or their, whoever the point person is on this, and get them in a discussion to tell them what we're trying to do, that we want to help them. We got the EPA issue out here. We got all these things. But we want to be sure that we're not the only one jumping in the pool. So,
I understand that at some point, we have to take the first step. If we're serious about addressing this issue, if we know all of the sensitivities around it as far as EPA and TCEQ, and we know the challenges that these smaller water companies have at some point. So I agree with bringing the Water Development Board to the table, but we can't say that we're not going to be responsible and help in this situation.
I would say that's true, with the exception that our promise to the local taxpayers is that this federal money is not going to cost them any money, and it could if we expose them to risk.
Well, guys, there might be an answer.
The Water
to this right
Development.
here. If we set it up as if we're the general contractor, so to speak, you always have a contingency. So why don't we take some of the funds and move them into a contingency?
They'd have to qualify.
And well, but so we don't end up, what I'm trying to say is if we got to send some money back, let it be ARPA money, not tax dollars.
No.
So these engineering fees that are coming up that are 20 or 30 or 40,000, we should make sure we keep enough. That if that's what we have to send back.
We're only going to release what they have engineering invoices for.
I'm for fine tuning the mechanism for it. I think taxpayers will, they understand the seriousness of the fact that we have citizens in McLennan County that may have access to water that is not of the quality that it needs to be. And I don't see them having a problem helping their neighbors have healthy water. And so I don't want to get in the balance the investment issue. But I do think we have to be smart and we have to run all our traps. But I don't think in this situation we can walk.
We're not running all our traps.
Let me say one thing about
we need to run all our traps, but we definitely don't need to pull away from it.
So let's get Water Development Board. Does anybody disagree the Water Development Board needs to be in this discussion? The fact that they're gonna be putting up 65, 70% of the money.
No, I thought at one time that was right.
Yeah.
But I do agree, but the only thing I am going to say is the clock is ticking.
Yeah.
And we gotta get our.
Yeah.
Speaking of clock ticking, how long has this been an issue and they don't have an engineered solution?
Well, they didn't have the money for an engineered solution, but the other thing.
How do they know how much it's going to cost? Then how did they come to?
You can always figure out a budget on a project before you engineer.
Yeah, you don't have to, I mean, it's subject, Water Development Board is gonna say, you know, that sounds reasonable, so for us to do it, the loan commitment agreement is gonna say, all right, here's a step, you gotta get, here's your soft cost, your engineering, your legal, all that stuff. And then like if I were the lender, I would advance for that. But it would be subject to everybody understanding what their pieces. I'm not worried about
Water Development
engineering.
Board is not going to commit to anything that until, I mean, if
We are
our
needed.
idea is that we can call them and they will commit to the funding, they're not going to commit to the I mean, they're not going to say, oh, okay, we're going to commit to the funding for this.
I'm not willing to move forward until the Water Development Board is brought into conversation.
I think that's an excellent idea.
Is there a deadline, as far as, EPA with these systems?
We're past the deadline.
We're past that deadline. Did they get some kind of
Legal
waiver?
Assurance just got a letter that they're gonna owe $30,000 a day, which they can't pay. For being out of compliance. And so what Mike's trying to do is get them that we're willing to help solve this problem. And I agree. And EPA will probably back off. I've already called, Congressman Sessions. I've got people plugged in to do it. But we gotta be sure that, Water Development Board is just as much a part of this solution as we are. Because we're not funding this whole solution. It's a conglomerate of, if two can be a conglomerate, two entities that are providing money.
And Judge, if I
Our
can add,
agreement says, oh, go ahead, Dustin.
I'm sorry, I was just gonna say LTG, it's actually a USDA rural development project. So there's another layer there too, Judge. That's a third entity. So,
And a federal entity is for sure not going to commit the funding.
Sure, not
But the agreement says if additional funding is not obtained by the subrecipient by December 31st, 2023, this agreement may be terminated by the county and the ARPA funds allocated to different projects. So we give ourselves a cushion that if they can't come through with the things that they need to in order to fund this agreement, fund this project, that our funds will revert back to the county. I support giving them what they need for number one, to stop the fines that they're getting from the EPA, and also for the EPA to know that there is support from other entities to help them mitigate this issue. If we walk away, it's like we're leaving them standing alone, struggling to come up with this, and I just don't see where that's beneficial.
I never said they were walking away. I'm saying we just need to get everybody on this, at this table at the same time, so we understand what everybody's doing. I mean, I think we can easily be able to have a commitment ready to go along with the commitment from Water Development. Now, this is new information on the Leroy Tour Gerald having the USDA project, which is a separate solution to Water Development Board. So I don't know, what we do about that.
With the way the agreement is written, giving us the pathway to terminate the agreement if they don't come up with additional funding. Is there no way we can go ahead and approve the agreement as is presented by legal today?
I wouldn't support it until we get Water Development Board. I mean, I don't want to say it again. If they're part of the funding solution and we are part of it, and us not talking, doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, we have to have an agreement about who's got what.
Well, I would have thought we would cross that bridge a while back.
Yeah.
And I thought.
But they were in on the meetings. I thought they were in.
Well, we haven't had them come, what we did is that counted on Tom to go to them. We haven't brought them in here in front of us.
Well,
Okay.
and I thought, you know,
Okay.
part of the criteria was where these things have been, you know, had an engineer on board and stuff like that. I mistaken in thinking that, or?
Yeah, I think so, because I mean, it's a misunderstanding, because in any project that requires engineering, you go to the bank, you go to the lender and you say, here's what I need, and we're gonna have in our cost, besides construction, here's the soft cost, the engineering, all that front, the legal documents, all that. So the lender approves it, and in the first draws that come out of the loan go to cover the cost of engineering and all that. They're not gonna pay for engineering just out of their cash if they don't have the project approved. So I think we're in the natural progression. I just want to understand that Water Development Board understands what we're trying to do, and that we're not in the pool by ourselves. I think this thing would be fairly risk-free, as long as we know what everybody's doing. But that doesn't sound like to me we know what everybody's doing.
Well, and here's
They were
another
there
point,
at
too.
the meetings with you all, at the Brazos River Authority meetings. I thought the Water Development Board was already sitting at the table.
But we're not at the table when they're at the table.
Okay.
There's still already engineered projects I know of that are ready to go. I mean, that are holding up, you know, so I hate to be that way, but
I don't want to.
there's, I mean, I know of projects that are engineered. The water company that has an engineer, has hired an engineer, is ready, they're ready to, all they need is funding, either our funding, Water Development Board funding, USDA funding, it's all ready. It's just.
So you're saying the engineer's in place, he just wants to be paid.
Some of the arsenic, the water company has already hired an engineer, has already hired an engineer, not arsenic. It's not arsenic. It's not arsenic. So that's a different.
Every one of these water supply corporations has an engineer that they use. I have no idea whether they pay them or not. Sounds like Leroy Tours is not. And they need the money for the engineer. So in this request, I'm just saying, let's understand who, if it's not. So Dustin, are you saying it's not gonna be Water Development Board for Leroy Tours, Gerald, it's gonna be USDA?
So Judge, what spurred all of this was a email from the president of Leroy Torres, Gerald, and it says EPA will find LTG since we have no way to produce sufficient funds to do engineering on the USDA Rural Development Project and loan to solve the EPA violations.
Could I make a recommendation? Could we set a court date very soon that we devote nothing but that time to these water projects? Make sure we have everybody lined up that we would want to question or that we are just going to be a stakeholder and get them here and let's get this done in a day or two to know where we're all headed in the right direction. We're comfortable with the agreements. But I think if we keep waiting every 2 weeks and we keep having these issues pop up, I'm just nervous we're not going to get far, very far down the road.
Okay. So,
and in lieu of that being said as well, I don't think I see any eagerness from anyone to go ahead and approve this today.
Yeah.
So that's just my thoughts.
But I do hear the urgency in coming up with a solution. We're talking about 30,000 per day fines that they're being assessed from EPA, not counting the fact that people are accessing that water daily. And if the arsenic levels are an issue to the point that has been pointed out, and they've been cited, then I think we also need to look at the health and safety issue that we have in the community. Whatever we have to do to move this needle forward, because we were talking about this for, I know, over 9 months. Whatever we have to do to move the needle on it, I'm just in favor of that.
well, in regards to the health issue, I've been drinking that water for 60 years. And I don't, all my neighbors, I don't think there's any urgent health issue. It was.
And it was really just kind of out of the blue that the EPA came out with this, right?
Yeah, I'm gonna use this. This is not exactly right, but the requirement was that water, the arsenic level in water can't be over. And Dustin, you may know the exact parts per billion or whatever, but let's just use 50. And it's been that way. I mean, the day the well was done, that's what it was. Hadn't changed. EPA standard went from 75 to 10.
I thought it was from 4 to 2.
No, 20 to 10. 20 parts per billion to 10 parts per billion.
Okay, 20 to
10 parts.
10.
It's from 20 to 10.
Okay, 20 to 10. And so the only thing that's changed is the regulation. The water is the same. And so I'm the one on this court that's drinking the water. And I'm not jumping up and down that we move faster than we can think. And I think that's what, not careful, we need to methodically not put the taxpayers at risk, find out all the information. There's nothing wrong with waiting for the two lending entities to talk to each other. I haven't heard our attorney say that he's talked to him. I haven't received any correspondence from the Water Development Board. I've only talked to FHLM's guy. That he's talking to them. And that they have made a commitment of $8 million out there. And so what we've come in, so if they've got a commitment for $8 million. And that's an FHLE. I don't know why Leroy Tour Gerald had, all these wells are dug with drilled with USDA funding, every one of them. And so I don't know if there's confusion that this is USDA, I said FDA, USDA well that's getting water development funding. And I think they are. I just want to explain this. So I think it was just confusion about everything. We just need to use the opportunity plan. We should have been further along in this, but we are where we are. And so I make a motion to defer this action. And after I get out of court, I will get on the phone. I'll find out who to talk to the Water Development Board. And start having conversations like a banker was there. And get our attorneys involved in to draw up the documents, be sure we understand. And we still are committed to take our allocation, $4.4 million in these rural water systems that have lost position. We just haven't nailed it down. We've allocated it to where it's going to go. Now we have to paper around the money getting to where it goes for the purpose it's intended. So I'll make a motion.
Second.
Have a motion second. Any other discussion? No discussion, call for a vote.
Commissioner Smith,
Aye.
Commissioner Miller,
Aye.
Judge Wilson,
Aye.
Commissioner Jones.
Aye.
Commissioner Perry.
Aye.
Pass. Okay.
Judge Caitlin D will need to be deferred also.
All right, there's a motion for the fire.
Motion to defer. Second.
Have a motion second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed. All right. Under K2 regarding the bipartisan infrastructure law discussion and our action on funding guidelines and opportunities for eligible projects, programs, and related matters.
No specific update today. TLC is continuing to gather information and reach out to entities. So we will be looking for their next update.
Okay. Under K3, authorization of the grant agreement with Department of State and Health Services, mitigation of COVID and confinement facility grant program. Yeah.
And back in June, we had approved the submission of this grant application, and this is for, just as it says, it's for funding for COVID-19 testing and mitigation activities in confinement facilities. Funding amount totals $263,023, and this is the grant agreement that goes along with that grant award.
Okay. Any questions? If not, what's the pleasure?
Motion to approve the grant agreement.
Second.
Motion made second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed. Under K4 regarding the FY22 VGA Veterans Treatment Court Discretionary Grant Program.
Back last month, we approved this grant award, and it provides $750,000 for a 48-month grant. And part of that grant is, of course, for substance use disorder treatment services. And this is agreement with Centacor Foundation for the provision of those services.
Okay, any questions? All right, not much pleasure.
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion and second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, passed. K5, regarding the state criminal alien assistance program, SCAP acceptance, FY 21 grant award.
This is the annual SCAP grant that we apply for. We've been awarded $174,701, and this helps offset the cost for correctional officer salary costs for incarceration of certain undocumented criminal aliens.
Any questions?
How many, can anybody from the sheriff's department, quantify the amount of the, criminal alien, undocumented criminal aliens? Real quickly, if not, then
We can get that number.
they usually always have, they usually have it.
They do, it's almost all U.S. Marshal contract covers that, but
Yes, it should have been part of the report that was submitted, unless we can find out.
Oh, okay.
If they don't chime in.
okay.
Doesn't sound like good.
All right, we can come back to it. All right,
So,
go ahead, motion second. All right, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. Under L, in Department's Office and specific request. Okay, all right,
K5.
K5, motion to approve the grant award.
Second.
have a motion second, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. Thank you. Under L, Departments and Office specific request, under L1 County Sheriff, L1A is authorization application for aircraft hull and liability insurance with Assured Partners.
And this is just the application for insurance with this company, and Captain Nixon is working with some other companies to receive some additional quotes as well, but we just need a motion to approve this application.
Motion to approve.
Second.
In this application, three.
Yes, sir, for 3 helicopters.
What, I thought we had 2 functional and 1 that we were cannibalizing for the others.
I am not certain. I know Captain Nixon had to step away.
Right, I didn't know that we were going to carry full coverage on one that were cannibalized.
I don't know if there's, I think it's fine.
All 3 listed show that they are listed as standard for airworthiness. So Commissioner, I'm not sure, but we can find out.
Yeah, I'm kind of curious the rotation on that too. How they, I mean. Yeah, if we could.
Yes, sir.
We need to back that. I think we've made a motion to approve it, but not, should we defer it till we?
Okay, who made?
I made the motion, really. I'll withdraw that and make a motion to defer.
Second.
A motion second to defer. Any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. All right, under L1B, discussion or action regarding the jail transport vehicle.
Yes, commissioners, the capital outlay that we were approved for FY23 included a specifically named line for a jail transport Suburban. We were told after the budget was approved that the VIN allotments were still available for that vehicle. We issued a purchase order, then they said it's not available. So we are asking to change that title from Jail Transport Suburban to Jail Transport LS Tahoe, same purpose, and I think it's around $5 and change less. So we're not asking for any money. It's just a change of the title on the capital outlay line item.
Okay, any questions?
You okay with that, Francis?
Yes, we just want to make sure that those specifics for those assets are brought forward, so that's.
Okay.
They're returning $5.13, so how could it be wrong?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Nickel down business. All right, we have a motion and a second. Any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. David, are you still on?
Yes, sir. What can I do for you?
Well, we had an item here on, insurance coverage on 3, helicopters. And so I guess the question was, so there's 3, are these 3 flying helicopters? They all, I know, several of them, I guess. So we have 3 airworthy helicopters.
Are they all 3 being utilized?
That is correct. So these units, and Captain Nixon could certainly elaborate more on this, but the airframes that we get are Bell OHV 58s, and these are military surplus through the 1033 program, and trying to maintain those airframes through cannibalization and through reducing the number of hours by spreading the load, because these airframes are already on the larger side of the hours, to keep those hour meters down. But those are 3 airworthy functional airframes.
Yeah, I guess, good question would be, what does it cost us for each one that we have airworthy flying? Insurance, everything, yeah. So if you can work on that, this item was the fire.
And I think, David, the court was under the impression that we had 2 airworthy and 1 was for cannibalization. That's what I remember coming to us in the past.
So I'll have to look back, Commissioner, and see the records when the other airframe came into service. But all of our 1033 items that we receive, of course, we run them through court, and that's certainly not a jab in any way. I'll just have to look and see when that occurred, and I'll get Captain Nixon to provide y'all with some reports in regards to usage and hours, because we do have to log all that for FAA regulatory purposes.
Okay, thank you. Under H2, Heart Texas Fair Electrical Event Center authorization of repair for dry fire suppression system for the show pavilion. TJ?
Yes, so this is a quote that we received to replace 147 linear feet of the 4-inch sprinkler pipe system out there in the show barn. Just due to the nature of it, this has already been approved and is in the works to get the system back up and operational. So this is just kind of tidying up the approval process.
Okay, any questions?
TJ, does this come with warranty as far as how long it'll last?
Typically we see a 1-year workmanship warranty, and then depending on the material itself, I think it's all dependent on, of course, acts of nature. You know, we had that hard freeze a couple of years ago, and that did some damage. But other than that, I mean, it's usually just a small workmanship warranty.
You know, in a show pavilion, you better have good fire suppression system.
Right.
That's all I'm saying. Yeah. My motion would be to approve.
All right, I'll second. Any other discussion? No other discussion, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. Under L3, Human Resource Authorization Request for use of discretionary health initiative allowance for hepatitis B vaccinations. Anna?
Thank you, Judge. I am requesting the ability to use the discretionary allowance that is built into our United Healthcare Administrative Service Agreement that's intended for wellness incentives. I am requesting the ability to use those funds in order to purchase this coming year's projected need for hepatitis B vaccinations for incoming employees. In previous years and this year, we had set aside or requested a budget out of the HR budget for these vaccinations. And we actually just were recently provided by United Healthcare clarification that hepatitis B vaccinations are an eligible service covered under their allowance options. So rather than to use county funds, we want to use this discretionary allowance instead to cover these vaccinations for an estimated 60 new hires for 2023, 60 new hires under the eligible positions. that are listed in our McLennan County Bloodborne Pathogens Exposure Control Plan, which are our law enforcement officers, jailers, detention officers, juvenile medical employees, and custodial employees.
Okay, any questions?
Anna, my understanding is that after January 1st, that the government will no longer pay for, or there's a consideration that they will no longer cover the cost of COVID vaccinations. Have you heard that? And if that's the case, would any of the discretionary funding that were allowed from United Healthcare, could it be used for COVID shots for staff?
That's a good question. I can get with our United Healthcare rep to see if they've received any news on the eligibility of COVID vaccines directly from the federal government, and then if they have any plans on incorporating that into an eligible service under our allowance.
Thank you.
Welcome.
Wouldn't that be kind of considered like a flu shot? I mean, aren't flu shots covered?
I would think, yes, flu shots are covered, and we've used that, this allowance for the flu shots. And
But without the allowance, I mean, the plan pays for the allowance. The plan.
Individual member, yes, the individual plans covering our employees and members do have preventative flu shots covered, as well as hepatitis B shots.
I was kind of,
yeah,
wondering, clarifying.
Okay.
Motion to approve the request from HR.
Is there a second?
Second.
Motion made, second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, passed.
Thank you.
Item under L4, special court authorization board accepting donations. Francis?
This is just a list of donations that specialty court has received for the prior month, so they seem to be accepted.
All right, is there any questions? Not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Motion made, second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, passed. Under L5, Constable Precinct 4 authorization of phone request. Lisa?
Yes, good morning. This
Morning.
request, as you said, comes from the Constable 4's office. They are needing an additional phone. They've recently had a remodel and office expansion at their location. They have 3 staff members, but only 2 phones between them. So the request is to have that third phone, and there is cabling in place after that expansion. We have a used phone inventory that we could supply them a device there at no additional cost.
All right, thank you. All right, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass.
Thank you.
Thank you. Going to item M2, discussion or action regarding guardrail and signage installation in Trade House Park, entrance on Red Creek Lane. I think there was a request to full, no action. All right. And then under M3, Lieutenant County Spaceport Development Corporation Authorization Board of Directors and officers and firms of office. And so, Dustin, you want to go?
Judge, it's included in the packet. It's just, as it stated, it's an authorization of the board and the terms of offices for those directors.
All right, any questions? Not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved. Second.
Motion made second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. M4 regarding local provider participation fund. Heather?
And Judge, Heather had to leave, so I'll cover this. So HHSC is called for a CHIRP. That's the Comprehensive Hospital Increase Reimbursement Program. IGT, it is due on this Thursday with the settlement date on Friday. The balance in the LPPF account as of today is a little over 17 million, but we would request a motion to approve an IGT up to the balance in the LPP account on the day of the IGT.
All right, any questions? If not, is there a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. Have a motion second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. Under items, M5 public power pool, updates, and that's all we've done that before. Going to items N under N1, authorization and professional service invoice seeking and why, Dustin?
Yes, sir. This invoice totals $264.75, and it covers their services from the month of October.
There's a motion to approve. So moved. Second. Have a motion second. Any other discussion? No discussion. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. All right, under Clinton County venue project, don't believe we have anything. O2. Under O2, discussion or action regarding the debt service fund and construction fund transfer.
And I'm sorry, we just need to defer that one for a week.
All right, I'll make a motion to defer. Second. And motion second, any other discussion, no other discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Pass. Number P is the Clinton County Radio Tower Project. Under P1, authorization revised license agreement. Dustin?
Yes, sir. Back in September, the court approved a license agreement with Verizon for a license to install their equipment on the new public safety radio tower in Woodway. And this agreement just needs to be revised there's an update on the map, but that's all that had changed.
Okay, any questions? Not, what's the
Motion to approve revised license agreement.
second? All right, there's a motion second, any other discussion? No discussion, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, pass. Under work session, are there any items there? Justin, you aware of any work session items we need to talk about?
No, sir.
Okay, all right, so in regards to this agenda, with the exception of those items that will be held over to tomorrow, I think they're pretty well finished. Is it? You're gonna try and say it?
Yes.
Okay, all right, we will recess until tomorrow, at, I believe 1:30, is that correct? All right, thank you, we recess and